Whoa.
Okay.
No, it's on fire.
What's going on, you guys? If you saw the last video, we put in a new wine intake and a new Holley carburetor. There's only a couple more things we need to do to it before it should fire right up, so I guess we should get right to it. So after I installed the carburetor, I wanted to hook up the electric choke. I looked up many ways to do it, and the best way I thought of was to directly hardwire it into the fuse box. So the best thing to do was to install an inline fuse to prevent any damage if, it got too much power or something like that, or I don't know, some sort of malfunction. So I soldered up an inline fuse. I rewired my car a couple of years ago, so everything's pretty fresh. I know where all the wires go, so it's pretty easy in that respect. So I just put the positive wire through the firewall and straight into the fuse box. And the nice thing about these modern fuse boxes is that everything's labeled. So then I decided to test the electric choke to see if it got 12 volts when you turn the key, and it did. So that was perfect. So the only other issue with the carburetor was, with my old carburetor, the throttle return spring was set up so that it was hooked up to the old intake. But the way this whole intake and carburetor was set up, it wouldn't have worked. So I looked it up and I bought this bracket off eBay, which was like 10 bucks. So it was definitely worth it. It came with 4 springs, 2 light and 2 heavy, so you could figure out exactly what you want. I put on the heavy springs and it felt really good. So then we were almost ready to go to start up the car, but then we ran into another issue, and that was the old throttle linkage did not work with this carburetor. It just did not have enough adjustment. So I thought about modifying it, but then I decided to go down to the parts store, and they were selling custom throttle linkage. And so I bought it. And this stuff, it looks a lot cooler, and it has a little bit more adjustment. I actually made some more adjustment. I cut it down and it looks pretty sick. So then it was time to start up the car. I was pretty excited at this point. I don't know. I don't think it's gonna run right at all, but we're just gonna do it and see what happens. So the carb did not want to start. It was backfiring.
Whoa.
Is that okay?
No, it's on fire.
Still?
Yeah, blow it out.
What do you mean blow it out?
Look. Whoa.
So the carb did not want to start at all. It was very weird. So I was like, oh, maybe it has to do something with the choke. So I messed around with the choke, and we got the same results. So then I was like, you know what? I must have messed with the timing. I mean, I took the distributor out, I marked it, I thought I had it all, marked up correctly, but I think I put it back wrong. And before you knew it, I spotted some oil on the ground. I was like, oh my God, what could this be? Are you kidding me? But it turned out that the oil filter was loose. I hand tightened it, we tightened it back up, and it stopped leaking. I then took out the distributor. I had no clue what I was doing. I moved it around, and then we started up the car. Now it was backfiring through the exhaust, so at least we weren't getting flames shooting out of the carb. So at this point, I realized I had no clue what I was doing. So I hit up my grandpa Jim. He knows everything about old cars. He has a lot of experience with that stuff, and he helps me out with everything on this car. So he came over and he was gonna help out with timings. So the first thing we did was remove the spark plugs. We were gonna manually turn over the engine to verify top dead center. You put your thumb in the first cylinder, and then you turn over the motor until it pushes out air, and then you can basically verify all that. So then we lined up the top dead center line with the pointer. We then adjusted it so that the rotor on the distributor pointed towards the number 1 cylinder plug wire. At this point, since we had all the old spark plugs out, I was like, you know what, let's just go down to the store and put in new ones while they're all out. It'll probably make the car run better. And look how filthy the old ones were. We then gapped the spark plugs to make sure they were all adjusted correctly. So then it was time to start up the car. Of course, we ran out of battery.
You don't think you have enough juice?
So then we hooked up a charger on the battery, and it was time to go.
What?
No, it's ignition.
My grandpa then got out the timing gun and started adjusting the distributor. A few moments later, my dad looked underneath the car and noticed that there was a bunch of liquid, which is never a good sign. It was apparent that we were leaking oil and coolant out of the oil filter. My dad wiped it away. Some oil residue was left, which created a smiley face, which was honestly messed up. It was just mocking me at this point. So once we figured out the ignition, car started up right away, which was awesome. Then we realized that the car's leaking oil, and it looked like the oil filter was bad. I honestly don't know what was wrong with it. It was tight, but it was leaking oil. My dad looked at the oil and it was milky. So the coolant and the oil got mixed somehow. So I think there's an issue with the gasket, the intake manifold gasket. So that's kind of a bummer. So looks like we're gonna have to tear everything apart again and look at what happened. So it's kind of a bummer. The car's been down a long time. It wants to be back on the road. It will be back on the road soon. So we'll just have to get back to it. It's always a project with these cars. It just has to be part of your expectations. So we'll see you guys soon, and stay tuned for the next video.